So we hear this gospel lesson today, and it comes under the guise of Jesus being visited by one of the leading Jewish authorities of the day, one of the leading religious figures of the day, Nicodemus. So Jesus says these words to Nicodemus, and one of the things that you don't know, but they're meeting in the dark. Okay, and in the Gospel of John, dark and light have certain connotations and certain symbolic meanings. The fact that Nicodemus came to Jesus in the dark means something. All right, it means that Nicodemus did not want to be seen, because that would have meant kaput for Nicodemus. All right, it would have been bad stuff for Nicodemus. So he comes to Jesus at night, and he asks some questions, and Jesus gives him some responses. And one of the responses, we get the gospel lesson for today. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, to the end that all that believe in him should have life and have it abundantly. What John 3:16 doesn't talk about is what I'll talk about in a second. But, let's just start with that first phrase, for God so loved the world, because I don't understand how John does this. In John, God so loved the world that he did a bunch of things. But then the world is also used in John as this evil entity that wants to lure followers away from Jesus and wants to corrupt them. I mean, just look in the 15th chapter of John. I happen to have it right here. And it says, listen, this is Jesus talking to his disciples. It says, if the world hates you, be aware that it hated me before it hated you. If you belong to the world would love you as its own. Because you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. So, which is it? Is the world a hateful place, or does God so love the world? I get confused about it because, we are in the world, and the Greek word cosmos that's used in the Greek version of the New Testament is the same throughout. So it's not as if, John is just speaking about one world and he's speaking about another world. He's speaking about the same world, but in two very, very different ways. And I sometimes have a hard time understanding that. I guess it's rooted in the fact that I have a hard time understanding a God who says, I love you, I love you, I love you, but if you don't believe in these certain things, then you're damned for eternity. Rob Bell wrote a book last year called Love Wins. Some of you may have read it. But in it, he says, essentially, what modern-day Christianity is boiled down to is that God is this all-loving, unconditionally forgiving, abundantly blessing God who just loves you like a grandfather loves his grandchild. But if you don't believe in these certain ways, whatever a church tells you to believe, or whatever a priest tells you how to believe, then you're damned forever. Is that it? Is that what we understand to be true? Because if so, that's a pretty grim place to be, I think. That it becomes an intellectual exercise. That if I can set aside whatever qualms I have about it, and just believe these things, then I'm saved. But if I get hung up on one of those things, just one, then I'm doomed to the lake of fire. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. Think about all the things that God has done. Just throughout the Bible. All right, start at the beginning. Start with the 7 days of creation. Okay, the seventh day God rested. On the sixth day, God looked at everything he had made and said, oh, it is very good. He created us out of love. He created us for love, to love. That's why we were created, for love. And then you read on a little bit further. God became angry with people who were sinning. So he sent a flood to destroy the creation. But he saved Noah, and he saved some animals. And then he made a rainbow. He made a promise to himself saying, I'm never going to do this again. This is a bad idea. Right? So he saved us, and he did that out of love for creation. And then you move on a little bit further into Exodus. God heard the cries of his people who were enslaved in Egypt. And he sent Moses to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And Moses led him out on dry ground. through the Red Sea. He saved his people that he loved. Right? It was out of love that God did this. And then throughout the Old Testament, there are prophets sent telling people, this is the way to live. This is not the way to live. This way that you're living is not going to lead to anything good. Live this way instead. God loved us that much that that's what he did for us. He kept giving us chance after chance after chance until finally he sent Jesus, his only Son. He sent us Jesus so that anyone who believed in him could have everlasting life. But if you don't believe in Jesus and the things that the church tells you about Jesus and the ways in which you're supposed to believe, then it's all for naught. No more chances. Sorry. I mean, is that it? I have a hard time wrestling with that. And I don't want to, throw myself on the mercy of God, without merit. At the same time, I just can't imagine that that's the last chance. I just can't imagine that. The other thing about John that I wrestle with, that I struggle with, maybe you do too, it's his imagery of darkness and light. It's the idea that things are either black or white, night and day, good or evil. And maybe you know people who have, put life into these terms. I went to a Roman Catholic college, and, I like to be in the gray in these things. But at this Roman Catholic college, everything was black and white. I mean, that was the school colors, were black and white, actually. But it's always been counter to the way that I've understood things. And I don't know whether that's my upbringing or what it is, but it's always kind of rubbed up against me the wrong way in John. And I think part of it is because the way that I've understood it is that John's community that he wrote the gospel for was being persecuted. It was being persecuted by religious leaders in the synagogues. It was being persecuted by people who did not understand what Christianity was all about, what this new movement was going to do. So it was being persecuted from outside. And so what do you do when you're part of a group, part of a minority that's being persecuted? You want to protect yourself. You want to put up walls around you so the bad people can't get in, can't infiltrate you. You want to stay strong. You want to build up your own community. So I think a lot of this language in John has to do with the community's security, or maybe insecurity, right? What John was writing for his own community was saying, look, you're either with us or you're against us. And it has to be that way because there are so many people against us. We're a minority here. People want us to be stamped out, and we've got to keep it going. And when you look at it that way, you have to make things black or white sometimes. Unfortunately, that language might not be as helpful for the church in the 21st century. The reason I say that is because when we talk about darkness and light, and the people that are doing evil things in the darkness, and the people that are doing good things in the light, we can't help but hear that language in the sense of insider or outsider, right? And when we're inside the church, the people that are outside the church can very easily become they, them, those people. And it can very easily become a situation where we build up these walls, we build up a cage for Jesus, and we say, you stay here with us, Jesus. We're going to keep you safe from those people. It just doesn't work for me. I get the sense that that's not who Jesus was. My reading of the gospel is like this, and feel free to disagree with me. It's okay. I think that Jesus was the one at the party who would always get dragged into a conversation and then turn around to face the crowd. Right? He was the one that was always wandering off to the outskirts, always looking for the person who wasn't being engaged. He was the one who was going out into the dark places, into the places that those on the inside would say, that's a dark place. You can't go there. I mean, Jesus loved being there. He loved going out to the margins of society. In a few weeks, we're going to do Holy Week. And, you go Monday, Thursday, Good Friday. Holy Saturday, when Jesus dies on the cross, where's the first place that he goes? He goes to hell. That's the first place he goes. And would you find any Christians there? If you ask about a lot of people in church, they'd say, no, of course not. There are many Christians in hell. That's where Jesus goes. His first stop is hell. That tells me something about Jesus, at least about the Jesus that I understand. That I understand that Jesus is more interested in the people who are living in darkness than the people who are living in light. I think the Jesus that I understand is a Jesus who is more interested in getting outside of the cage and going outside of the places that the church wants to construct for him, rather than staying inside with the insiders. You know, it's as if people wanted to build up walls around Jesus and say, Jesus, you can shine your light all you want to in here, to the people that we know, to the people that believe like us, that think like us, that act like we act. You can shine all the light you want to on them, but forget about those people outside these walls. And Jesus says, you think you can hold my light in? Is this your light that you get to hold in? You get to say who gets this light? I just don't understand it that way. And I think we as a church, when we try to hold on to Jesus, like grasping at his cloak, grasping at his robe, saying, don't go anywhere, don't leave us, I don't know whether we're fulfilling the mission of the church or not. I wonder when we say, no, you can't partake in this sacrament because of X, Y, or Z, are we really doing the church's mission? When we say to people, salvation does not belong to you, we get to decide who's saved and who's not, I think we're probably standing in the way of God more than anything else. This is the Jesus that I'm trying to understand, and I wrestle with it daily because, especially in the Gospel of John, there are things that I just don't understand yet, and maybe I never will. Hopefully I never will. Hopefully I'll continue to ask these questions and continue to struggle with it because it's bringing me to different, I want to say hopefully deeper understandings of this person that I think I've given my life to. And it means that my life is taking different shapes. It means that now I'm not challenged when I go on vacation to, I've got to get to church on Sunday morning. It's more, how can I engage with the guy who's cleaning the floor of the hotel? The guy who's never had a guest speak to him before. And to me, that's probably where the gospel happens more right now in my life than here in worship. You know? It's happening on the margins. It's happening in the darkness, in the place where I never expected it to happen. So today we get this image of dark and light. My offering to you is to question and to wonder if Jesus wouldn't be looking out towards the darkness and saying, will you come with me? Will you follow me? Amen.